We just studied Sutram 1449, Karturi Psita Tamang Karma, which tells us that Karakam, participant in the action, which the doer most desires to obtain or reach through the action, is called karma or object. Now we take the Sutram 232, Karmani Dvitiya, which tells us that Anukte Karmani Dvitiya Syat, which means that a second case affix, out, or shas, Ekavachanam, Dvivachanam, Bahuvachanam, is used to denote karma, object of the action, but there is a condition here, provided it has not been expressed otherwise. Now, before going on, let's remind ourselves that any vibhakti assignment has to be approved by a sutram or maybe a vartikam in the third quarter of chapter 2 of the Ashtadhyayi. That assignment may depend on the Karaka Sanya, which was obtained by a sutram in the Adhikara of Karake, which runs from 1423 to 1455. But ultimately, the assignment of a case affix, vibhakti, has to be done by a sutram or a vartikam in the third quarter of chapter 2 of the Ashtadhyayi. So whenever the question is asked why a particular vibhakti is used in a particular situation, the final answer is going to be given by a sutram or a vartikam in the third quarter of chapter 2. For example, here we got the karma sanya by 1449, but to assign Dvitiya Vibhakti, we have to come to a sutram in 2.3. Okay, now what is this thing about Anukte Karmani? Why not just Karmani? That is because of the Adhikara of Anabhite. 231. Very important sutram. 231. It's the Adhikara sutram, which exerts its influence throughout this third quarter of chapter 2 of the Ashtadhyayi, of course, as and when appropriate. The Adhikara of Anavite runs through the entire quarter 3, chapter 2 of the Ashtadhyayi, so it's very important to remember that any sutram in 2.3 is in the Adhikara of Anabhite. Of course, we know how the word Abhita is formed by adding the Nishtha affix kta following the verbal root dha, dudhai, dharana poshana yoho. In the upasarga abhi, then dha takes the substitution hi by the sutram 7442. Dodhater hi. All this we have studied already. The meaning of abhidha is to express, to describe. So anabhite means when not already expressed or described. We have a detailed note down here about this idea of anabhite and what happens when the karma, the object, is already described by Tingantam Padam or Ikudantam Padam, etc. So that we'll see shortly. Right now let's take an example where the object is not already described. Simple sentence here, Harim Bhajati. We know from 1449 that Hari gets the karma sanya, because that is the ipsita tamam. That is what the doer of the action most wants to reach or obtain through the action of worship. So Hari gets the karma sanya by 1449, and then by this sutram 232, Hari takes the Dvitiya Vibhakti. We add the affix and then by Ami Purvaha, Purva Parayoho, Ekadesha is the Purva Rupam, we get the form Harim. Ami Purva, of course, is 61107. Before we go to the note on Anabhite, let us clarify another point here, which is about adjectives. And the statement here says, an adjective takes the same gender, number, and case as that taken by the term that it qualifies. The rule is stated as follows, Yallingai yadvachanai yacha vibhaktir visheshyasya tallingan tadvachanan saiva vibhaktir visheshanasyapi. Which is exactly what we said, is that whatever gender, number, and case is taken by the term that is qualified, the same gender, number, and case is taken by the adjective. So for example, Krishnam Vande Jagadgurum. Jagadgurum is qualifying Krishnam, and Krishna is the object of the salutation, is the object of Vande, so it takes Dvitiya Vibhakti. So the adjective Jagadgurum takes the same gender, number, case as the term that it qualifies. So Jagadgurum also takes Dvitiya Ekvachanam, Pullinge. Okay, now let's come to this concept of Anabhite. Note says here, this from the Siddhanta Kaumudi, Abhite tu karmani pratipadikar matra iti prathamaiva, which means abhite tu karmani pratipadikar Arthamatre iti prathama eva. What this means is that, but if the object has already been expressed, then a first case affix is used to denote only the meaning of the pratipadikam, nominal stem. That is by the Sutram 2346, which we have studied. Pratipadikaarthalinga parimana vachana matre prathama. So basically, when the karmatvam, the objectness, is already described by something, then what remains is only the pratipadik artha, and then that dictates that the prathama vibhakti should be used as per 2346. The question is, what describes the objectness? The answer is given as Abhidhanam tu prayena ting krittadhita samasaihi, which means that for the most part the description is done by either a ting affix or a krit affix or a tadhita affix or a compound samasaha. Let's take an example of each one of these. First, let's take the example where a ting affix describes the object. Simple sentence: Harihi sevyate. Lord Vishnu is served by someone. Here the thing affix te, which is used, is in the sense of karmani. It points to the object Harihi. That pratham purushaha ekavachanam, which is used in the affix te, that is because of the object Hari being pratham purusha ekavachanam. It is a passive usage. So the affix te already tells us that the object is a pratham purusha ekavachanam. So the object is already described by the affix te. Hence the condition anabhita is not satisfied, so therefore 232 cannot be used, and Hari does not take the second case affix. It instead takes the first case affix, because the only thing that remains now is the pratipadika, and hence 2346 comes and prescribes the prathama vibhakti. Similarly, take the example Lakshmiya sevitaha Harihi. Hari is served by Lakshmi Devi. Here again the krit affix kta, nishtha pratyaha kta, that is used karmani as per 3470. Tayoreva kritya kta kalarthaha. The affix kta is used karmani. So it is describing the object, and therefore sevita, which is qualifying Hari, takes the prathama vibhakti by 2346. Let's take a more complicated example here. Let's look at the sentence Sugrivaha Shri Ramena Hatam Valinam Dadarsha. It's complicated because here Valin is the object of two actions. The action of killing done by Sri Ramaha and the action of seeing done by Sugrivaha. So Sugrivaha saw Vali killed by Sri Rama. So Valin as the object of the action of killing is already described with the krit affix kta used in hata. But Valin still takes the second case affix because there is nothing describing Valin as an object of the action of seeing. So we have to be very careful. There's more than one action. The object may be described with regard to one action, but it can still take the second case affix if it remains undescribed as the object of another action. Okay, let's take a case where a tadhita pratyaha describes an object. Now we have not just studied this section of tadhitaha, but we can just quickly look at this example to the extent that it affects the assignment of a case affix. Example here is Shatena Kritaha Shatyaha Ashvaha. A horse has been purchased at a price of 100. Buy 100. The horse is the object of the purchase. One who bought. For him the ipsita tamam is the Ashvaha. But what has happened here is that the tadhita pratyaha yat prescribed by the Sutram 5121 Shatacha Thanyata Vashate. Sutram we have not studied yet. We don't have to go into all the details right now. The important thing to note is that the affix yat is used here in the sense of Tena Kritam, which is a Sutram 5137. The Sutram says Kritam, that the affix kta used in Kritam is in the sense of karmani by 3470. Tayoreva krityakta kalarthaha. So the affix yat used in the sense of Tena Kritam already describes the object of the purchase. Hence the karma is now abhihitam, and therefore it does not take the second case affix. It defaults back to the prathama vibhakti in the sense of pratipadika matre. So shatya, which is qualifying ashva, takes the prathama vibhakti. Let us now take the case of a compound. We have not just studied the topic of compounds, but we can just look at this example for the purpose of assigning the correct vibhakti. This is a bahuvrihi compound. Praptaha Anandaha yam saha. Prapta anando yam sa praptanandaha. So he whom happiness has reached. So he is the one to whom happiness has reached. So the object of reaching is clearly him, this person. But in Sa Praptanandaha, we see that Prathama Vibhakti is used. How is that? Because even though he is the object of reaching, that object has already been described by the compounding process. The compound Praptanandaha already stands for Prapta Anandaha Yam. The compounding here is done by the Sutram 2:24. Anekam Anya Padarthe. So Prapta and Ananda compound together to describe someone who is not in the compound. And that someone is the object of reaching. So that someone is already described by the compound, and therefore Dvitiya Vibhakti is not used. We default back to the Prathama Vibhakti by 2:346. Now we already said that Abhidhanam tu prayena tinkrit tadhita samasaihi. For the most part, Abhidhanam is done by these four: a ting affix, a krit affix, a tadhita affix, or a compound. But sometimes Abhidhanam is also done by a nipataha. So, kvachid nipatena abhidhanam yatha vishavrukshopi samvardhya swayam chettuma sampratam. This is a quotation from Raghuvamsha Kavyam of Kalidasaha. Here, asampratam means na sampratam. Sampratam ityasya hi yujyate ityarthaha. The meaning of sampratam is yujyate. So asampratam means na yujyate. It is not proper. It is not proper to grow a tree and cut it off oneself, even if the tree is a poisonous tree. So Vishavruksha, the tree, the poisonous tree, is the object of growing as well as of cutting. But it still doesn't take the Dvitiya Vibhakti because the Nipataha Sampratam stands for Yujyate. And that Yujyate, that thing affix te, points to the tree. The Prathama-purusha Ekavachanam used in Yujyate is telling us something about the object. This is a karmani prayogaha. That is what prevents Vishavruksha from taking the Dvitiya Vibhakti. We default back to the Prathama Vibhakti by 2:346. Let's take another example where a Nipataha does the Abhidhanam, the description. From the Gita, verse number 2, chapter 13. Idam shariram kaunteya kshetramit Yabhidhiyate etadyo vethitam prahu kshetrajna iti tadvidaha. Tadvidaha means the experts, the knowers of that. Kshetrajna iti prahu. Tam kshetrajna iti prahu. They talk of him as the kshetrajna, the knower of the field. So clearly kshetrajna is the object of the talking or narrating. Kshetrajna is the object of prahu. Then why doesn't Kshetrajna take the Dvitiya Vibhakti? Here Kshetrajna does not take the second case affix because it has already been expressed by iti, the indeclinable iti. That is what is shielding Kshetrajna. Iti is a end quote. What is inside the quotation is already described by iti. Inside the quotation is a single word Kshetrajna. Since iti has already described it, it does not take the Dvitiya Vibhakti because the condition Anabhita is not satisfied, and Kshetrajna defaults to the Prathama Vibhakti in the sense of Pratipadika Matre. So this is another example of how a Nipataha, in this case iti, can be the one that is doing the Abhidhanam, the description of the object. And when that happens, we can no longer use the Dvitiya Vibhakti by 2:3:2 because the condition Anabhita is no longer satisfied.